Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Have an excellent Wednesday, everyone. Now pay attention because something is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore as the Eagles move deeper into training camp. This defense may be turning into something far more dangerous than anyone expected. The early stages of camp are already producing some major takeaways, and while there is plenty of attention on what the offense is trying to build with a completely new system, it is the defense that has been setting the tone almost every day. What makes this especially interesting is the possibility that Vic Fangio could be working with his best Eagles defense yet. The comparison is not being made against an ordinary standard. The 2024 defense was part of a team that won the Super Bowl, and the 2025 defense finished the season as one of the top 5 scoring defenses in the NFL. Yet, based on what has been happening throughout camp, there is a legitimate argument that the 2026 unit could be even better. The biggest reason for that optimism is the amount of talent Fangio has available to him. Fangio already has the experience and reputation of one of the best defensive minds in football, but now he is working with a roster that appears capable of giving him answers at multiple levels of the defense. Throughout camp, the Eagles have been generating turnovers, creating pressure on the quarterback, and making life extremely difficult for their own offense. That last point might actually be one of the most important things to understand. The Eagles' offense is built around the running game, yet even that foundation has been having trouble consistently moving the ball against this defense during practice. That is a major challenge for an offense that is also trying to learn a completely new system, but at the same time, it could become a major advantage once the regular season arrives. If the Eagles' offense is being forced to deal with this level of competition every day during the summer, facing other defenses later in the year could feel like a completely different experience. And when you look at the defensive line, it becomes very easy to understand why this group is creating so many problems. Moro Ojomo, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Carter give Fangio an extremely talented trio on the interior. The source even points toward the possibility of Fangio using more 5-man fronts simply to find ways to get all 3 players onto the field together. That is a fascinating possibility because it would allow the Eagles to put tremendous size and talent directly in front of opposing offensive lines while also creating opportunities for other players behind them. One of those possibilities involves Cooper DeJean moving back to safety, which could help the Eagles get more of their best defensive backs onto the field at the same time. And there is another important detail here. This defense has been performing at a high level even without Jonathan Greenard, who is dealing with a pectoral injury. That makes the performances of other players even more significant because the Eagles are finding production despite missing an important piece. Jalen Hunt, for example, has been having a superb camp according to the source, and there is even the suggestion that he could be headed toward a breakout season if he can put everything together consistently over an entire year. Then you look at the linebacker group, and the depth becomes another reason for optimism. Nolan Smith, AJ Epinesa, and Arnold Ebiketie have all been making their presence felt. Zach Bond brings the experience and versatility of a former first-team All-Pro, and the Eagles have been able to use him as a blitzer, in coverage, and against the run. Jihad Campbell is also beginning to put everything together, while players such as Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Nakobe Dean provide additional depth and competition. The cornerback situation may be just as interesting. The source specifically highlights Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and Reek Woolen as a potentially outstanding trio. Woolen in particular has reportedly been impressing people since joining the Eagles in free agency, and what makes this even more encouraging is that a position that could have been viewed as a concern entering camp has started to look much more promising. Andrew Makuba and Marcus Epps have been performing well, while Michael Carter II has shown the kind of positional versatility that the Eagles can take advantage of. He has been asked to handle different responsibilities, and so far, according to the source, he has passed those tests with flying colors. That could be one of the biggest pleasant surprises of camp. When a position that enters training camp with questions suddenly starts looking like a strength, it changes the entire outlook of the defense. Instead of worrying about where the Eagles might be vulnerable, the conversation starts becoming about how many talented players Fangio can actually get onto the field at the same time, and that is where this defense becomes particularly exciting. The Eagles are not simply getting strong performances from the players everyone already expected to shine. They are also seeing new standouts emerge. Jalen Hunt is one of those names. Jihad Todd Campbell is another. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is also getting attention because of what he has been able to show, adding even more depth to a group that already has significant talent. There is a reason the source connects these developments to the Eagles' decision to move on from some veteran players. The confidence in the young talent is becoming increasingly clear. And when you compare this defense with what Philadelphia accomplished last season, the numbers make the possibility of improvement even more interesting. The Eagles allowed 19.1 points per game in 2025, which ranked among the top 5 scoring defenses in the league. Their 4.9 yards allowed per play ranked 7th in the NFL, while their red zone touchdown percentage of 53% was also among the top 10. The defense did have an area where it could improve, particularly on third down. But the larger point is simple. This was already a very good defense. Now imagine what happens if the 2026 version becomes even more complete. That is why the idea that this could be one of Vic Fangio's best defenses with Philadelphia is so intriguing. The talent is there. The depth appears to be there. The competition is there. And perhaps most importantly, the players are already showing signs that this group can make life extremely difficult for opposing offenses. But while the defense has been giving everyone reasons to get excited, there is another side of this Eagles team that deserves just as much attention, because the offense is currently going through something completely different. There are growing pains, and honestly, that should not come as a surprise. The Eagles are installing a completely new offensive scheme with a new offensive coordinator and new play calling structure. The system is described in the source as being influenced by the Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay coaching tree, which means there are major differences in the way the offense operates before and after the snap. There is more purposeful pre-snap motion. There are more things happening after the snap. The blocking techniques are different. Even the running game itself is being introduced in a new way. So when you combine a new offensive system, a rebuilt wide receiver room, new tendencies, and an offense trying to learn all of this while facing one of the NFL's most talented defenses every single day, it is understandable that things are not going to look perfect immediately. In fact, the difficult practices could ultimately become one of the best things that happens to this offense. Every day, these players are being forced to solve problems against an extremely talented defense. They are being challenged physically and mentally. They are learning what works, what does not work, and what needs to be adjusted before the games actually count. And there is one development in particular that Eagles fans should be watching very closely: Jalen Hurts. According to the source, Hurts has been taking meaningful steps forward during camp. He has been comfortable working from under center, something he has been asked to do more often. He has also been throwing over the middle, targeting the hashes, and completing passes between the numbers. Those details matter because the criticism surrounding Hurts has often focused on what the offense was asking him to do in the passing game. The point being made here is not that the Eagles should abandon one of his biggest strengths. Quite the opposite. Hurts has one of the best deep balls in the NFL, particularly when he sees a one-on-one matchup outside. That ability should remain an important part of the offense. But imagine adding another dimension to it. If Hurts can continue attacking the middle of the field while still using his deep passing ability on the outside, the Eagles could force opposing defenses to defend much more of the field. Instead of allowing defenses to focus primarily on throws outside the numbers, Philadelphia could make them account for threats everywhere, and that could completely change the way this offense operates. The goal is simple: force the defense to cover every blade of grass. That is where this new system could become particularly interesting as the season approaches. There are still questions, especially at wide receiver. Devonta Smith and Hollywood Brown are among the names expected to have important roles, while Darius Cooper has reportedly been one of the best wide receivers in camp. Johnny Wilson and Elijah Moore are also part of the competition for roster spots. The Eagles may only keep 6 wide receivers, which means there are going to be difficult decisions ahead. But Darius Cooper appears to have made a very strong case for himself after what he has shown during training camp and the preseason. And then there is another storyline that could have a major impact on the future of the offensive line. Lane Johnson announced on Saturday that this is probably going to be his final season. That immediately makes the development of Markell Bell even more important. According to the source, Johnson has praised Bell's work ethic his willingness to ask questions, and his approach to learning. Bell is also being developed as a potential future replacement for Johnson. That is significant because Philadelphia has already shown a willingness to prepare for the future before a franchise pillar is completely gone. The source points to previous examples involving Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Jason Kelsey, Cam Jurgens, Darius Slay, Quinion Mitchell, and Cooper DeJean. The philosophy is clear: prepare for the future early instead of waiting until the final moment. Now the Eagles are doing the same thing with Lane Johnson, and with the offensive line remaining healthy so far, that is another encouraging sign for a team that needs stability while introducing this new offense. There have been some soft tissue issues, but no catastrophic injuries have been reported in the source. That is something Eagles fans will certainly want to keep watching as training camp continues, because ultimately this is what makes this moment so fascinating. The defense looks ready to compete at an extremely high level. The offense is still learning. Jalen Hurts is showing signs of expanding his game. The wide receiver competition is creating difficult decisions. The offensive line is preparing for the future while trying to stay healthy in the present. And the offense does not need to peak right now. In fact, it probably should not. The real objective is to use these difficult days of training camp to work through the problems, learn the new system, and be ready when the regular season arrives. So now I want to hear from you, Eagles fans. After everything we have seen during training camp, do you believe this 2026 Eagles defense can actually become Vic Fangio's best defense in Philadelphia? And do